This video, I'm going to be starting the 1,800 square foot garage build series, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy this. It should be a really good transition, hopefully, back into automotive content. But I actually ended up doing all the general contracting for this build on my own. I didn't hire anyone else to do any of the planning or permitting. I did all the planning, all the design, and all the permitting myself, and I simply hired various contractors to do the work for me, such as building the pad, building the barn, building the stormwater systems. But I did all the permit planning and design on all those systems and all the layout and everything, and I'm really excited to share it all because I learned a lot. I think you guys are really going to find this cool, hopefully. And yeah, I will be showing all the permitting. I had to do both county and township permitting. I think I ended up having to do close to 4 permits. I ended up doing 4 permits actually, because of how big the barn was. I ended up building an 1,800 square foot barn with a 1,200 square foot parking lot in front of it. So already that's 3,000 square foot of disturbance, and then another 2,200 square foot driveway. So over 5,000, about 5,000 square foot of disturbance. This was a massive project. I basically built a whole nother house in my backyard. And because it was such a massive project, there were a lot of rules I had to follow, a lot of permits and plans that I had to put together for both the county and the township, so that they made sure I was doing everything right and wasn't polluting or harming the environment. So enjoy this video, enjoy all the permitting and planning, and these next couple videos we're actually going to get into the actual construction. I time-lapsed everything, so we've got some really cool video on the actual build and construction coming up soon. Enjoy this video.
The first thing I had to do before I could even start township permitting was I had to actually get county permitting, and I had to get a design and erosion and sedimentation pollution control plan so that no sediment or no soil from the construction area and area disturbance makes it to the street and then subsequently makes it into stormwater drains and then into rivers or streams and rivers, etc., because it's very bad for the environment for sediment to get into our streams and rivers. And that's very bad for the fish and their gills. So this was a massive project, getting this permit done, and it was required by my township and also required by the county for any area disturbance over 1,000 square foot. So basically, if you want to build a building or anything over 1,000 square foot, you have to go through this permitting process. You have to design this entire construction sequence, and you have to design this entire plan here showing everything that you're doing. So the really important things are the best management practices that had to be implemented. So I had to implement a rock construction entrance that was 50 foot long and 20 foot wide and 8 inches deep of ASHTO #1 stone. And what this rock construction entrance is for is when dump trucks and construction vehicles are leaving the build site, these rocks are so big that it actually shakes the truck, and it helps shake any dirt or sediment off the tires so that they're not getting mud and dirt and sediment into the street, which when it rains is going to eventually go into the stormwater systems and pollute the rivers and streams. The other big thing I had to do was design these, place these compost filter socks. So these compost filter socks are big mesh nets with wood chips in them. And what they're meant for is, since basically I have a slope down all the way to the street, all the water behind me, all the water in the construction site, it will actually erode the soil and cause the sediment to roll downhill. And what this compost filter stock for is to actually filter that sediment and catch it and only allow the water to continue onto the street. So that way there's no issues with the sediment getting into the stormwater system. I had to put the area disturbance, which is the entire area where construction was happening and where disturbance of earth would be. And if you don't stay within this area disturbance, there's some pretty hefty fines, and it's a pretty big deal, and I didn't want to deal with that. So here you can see we have the barn, where the barn's going to go. We have that I was cutting 6 inches of topsoil, and that topsoil is to be stockpiled in these topsoil stockpile locations here, of course with compost filter sock around them, so that way any erosion before it's stabilized doesn't get into the neighbor's yard or get to the street. And of course, put how much I was filling. So on average, we need to fill about 2.5 foot to get a level pad. And then of course the parking lot as well. My township requires that I do stormwater management for anything over 1,000 square foot. So I had to build infiltration trenches. So this infiltration trench here for this parking lot, and for the parking lot and for the barn. And then of course we have the house location, any existing parking lots, any existing sheds or structures or wells. I had to put my sand mound system in there. I had to show my neighbor's electric that runs through my backyard via a utility easement. And then, of course, the rock construction entrance extension to the build site. So basically, even after this rock construction entrance, there would be no way for trucks to get 200 foot back because they would just get stuck in the mud. So I had to build a whole extension that was 12 foot wide and like 150 foot long. And I ended up actually just turning this whole thing into a permanent driveway for the barn because basically they wanted me to rip it all out when I was done and kind of try and connect to my existing off-street parking over here and then use my neighbor's driveway via an easement. I said, you guys are crazy, I'm not doing that, and fought the township on it and won because they said I couldn't put in my own driveway. And ended up just reusing this rock construction entrance and extension for a permanent driveway for the barn, so that way I could use this private driveway for my barn only, and I could continue using my neighbor's driveway via an easement to get to my house and for other residential things. I also had to design this entire construction sequence, so the first thing that had to be done was to cut in the construction entrance, install the BMPs such as the filter sock, start stripping all the topsoil and stockpiling it, stabilizing the stockpiles by planting grass on it so that no erosion happens. And then, of course, during favorable growing conditions, redistribute all the topsoil. In my county, you're not actually allowed to haul out topsoil. It's not, I guess you could, but it's really frowned upon. And if you get caught, it's probably not a good thing. So anytime you have leftover topsoil, you have to redistribute it around the land. So we ended up actually using all this topsoil, and it really came in handy. But stuff like fill dirt, and subsoil you could truck out, but it's not advised to haul out topsoil, and I wouldn't want to anyway because it's good soil. And so that was the entire plan. Basically, it took months to get this plan approved, and basically the township said, until you have this plan approved, we're not taking a look at any of your applications or anything. Get this approved first, get the county's blessing, and then you can start the township permitting. And that's about it for this plan. And it was a lot of work, but I learned so much about erosion and sedimentation control and just about permitting, and it was very educational, so I can't complain too much. It did cost a lot of money to put in this construction entrance, to do this plan, to do all this, blah, 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 to follow all their little rules and everything, but it makes sense, you got to protect the dying environment we're living in. So the first permit I had to do was my building permit, and this is the permit you need to do the actual construction of the accessory building. And this is a site plan I had to put together. I just used good old Fusion 360, of course. And I did have a surveyor come out. I actually found my 4 corner pins myself using a metal detector. I did have a surveyor come out to verify that I did find the correct pins and that they were correct. You can see we have a 28-foot right-of-way here. So this line here is actually the center of the street. And right here, about halfway through, is where the actual grass starts in my property. So you can see about half of that, there's about 15 foot from the end of the street inwards that's actually right away that I can't use or build on. But the big thing with this permit is I had to design this site plan to show where everything's going to be going, all the dimensions of everything, all the existing structures, all the existing septic systems, well systems, etc. So you can see we got the front of my property here that's facing the street. It's 273 foot long, 179 foot wide. We got the rear of it and the 2 sides. So for my township, you have to be 25 foot off the side and 50 foot off the rear for your setbacks, and you're not allowed to have the building extend past the front of your primary dwelling. So originally I wanted to put the building over here and then reuse my neighbor's driveway over here because I have an easement to use his driveway and basically pave all this. But the township basically said, we don't want buildings in front of your house, and it would be better if you put it back here. And after doing a lot of thinking, honestly, I think it's way better that I put it back here because I have a neighbor over here and I have a neighbor behind here. And basically anytime I'm on my deck or anything, I just feel like I'm on display for the whole freaking neighborhood. So this building blocked the neighbor over here, gave me privacy from this neighbor. And both of them were pretty happy about that because we were always just like all staring at each other. And it's like, you don't buy an acre and a quarter to just be staring at your neighbor. you buy an acre and a quarter to have some privacy and some distance between them. So that ended up working out really well. So I put it 26 off the side, 51 off the rear, so that I didn't have any issues with it, potentially being not within the setbacks. And of course, it's fully within the bounds of my already primary dwelling. I probably could have made it 40 wide, but the issue is that actually my house was really only a 47-foot setback because it was built in the 70s when they didn't really care about anything like that. And they said, 47 foot looks good enough. So I actually lost a couple foot. So I really couldn't have made it too much wider because the house, it's not really shown on this diagram, but the house is actually on a slight angle. And basically if I moved it any closer, that line would extend out and it would get too close to this corner over here. And regardless, a 50 by 36 is freaking huge to have in your backyard anyway. We got the 42 by 25 parking lot. So I did end up kind of changing this during the construction, and I did end up making it the full 50 by 25. So that's really nice. And then, of course, we have the infiltration trench. So because I was having over 1,000 square foot of increase in impervious space, my township required me to do a stormwater management plan, and I elected to build one giant infiltration trench for the gutters and for the parking lot runoff. And I'll show that plan next. But yeah, just got existing off-street parking, existing walkways, sheds, etc., the existing septic mound. They just wanted to see where everything was and where I wanted to put the barn and how I wanted to lay everything out. And again, I just did this myself in Fusion 360. They were really appreciative that it was a digital drawing instead of just a hand drawing on grid paper. So this is the stormwater management plan I had to put together. Again, because I was creating such a big increase in impervious space, I had to put that water somewhere. You can't just dump it in the street and hope it makes it to a stream or something. I had to dump it into somewhere so that it, would infiltrate back into the ground. So the first step of this is there's a whole bunch of different BMPs you could use for this. I chose to just use infiltration trenches because they're the simplest. You just dig a giant hole, fill it with stone, stick a pipe in it, and dump all the water in there. It'll fill up and then slowly percolate over time back into the ground. But basically the first step I had to do for this is I had to do all my impervious surface calculations. So I had to do the calculations for the square footage of the roof, which ended up being 1040, so about 2080 square foot for just the roof. And then of course my pole barn off-street parking lot. So for this parking lot I actually excluded, so really originally it was going to be 42 wide by 25, but I actually excluded 15 foot from this impervious surface calculation. Because this little 15-foot here, eventually I did another permit to put in a permit driveway, and I included that in the driveway's stormwater. So basically all this plan includes is it includes the entire roof and 1/3 of the parking lot in front of it. And you can see I got arrows here indicating all the water is going to go down the downspout, be underground in PVC pipe into the infiltration trench. And then, of course, the pole barn off-street parking lot will be sloped towards the infiltration trench so that all that runoff will make it to there as well. So here I actually calculate the required volume control. So you can see, take all the square footage, you convert it to cubic foot, and then you divide it by a 0.4 void ratio. So since you put stone in an infiltration trench, the water can only sit in between the space between the stones, which is actually really only about 40% of the volume. So basically you have to make it 40% bigger to account for that, to account for that. And then of course the sizing of the actual trench, you take the cubic foot, you divide it by your desired depth, and then of course then you can get your width and your length. So for this I ended up doing about 5 foot deep by 10 foot wide and 24 foot long, and this thing was freaking huge. Wait till you guys see the construction video on that. So that was the infiltration, or that was the stormwater management for just the barn and 2/3 of the parking lot, and I'll show the driveway a little bit later. I also had to do a impervious surface permit. So basically anytime you increase your impervious surface, you have to submit this permit so that they can keep track of what you have. So you can see basically you have to calculate your net buildable site area. So my full property, it's actually 1.12 acres. I call it 1.25 as I like to round up. It's about 50,000 square foot. And you can see my right of way is about 5,000 square foot. So really my net buildable area is actually just about exactly an acre. So I have exactly an acre of land that I can actually build on that's not a right of way, that's not an easement, etc. So you can see I have some walkway to get to my house. I have already in existing buildings. I have an 1,100 square foot house and a 100 square foot shed. And of course, I have some 700 square foot off-street parking lot. And my total existing impervious before the barn was about 2,000 square foot. And I was allowed to have up to 8,760. So my proposed construction was 1,800 for the pole barn plus 1,050 for the off-street parking lot is 2,850. So my impervious was increasing from 2,000 to 4,850. And basically you're allowed to have 20% impervious coverage. So I'm allowed to have 8,700 square foot of coverage. And of course, after I build the driveway, which I show next, I really only have about 2,000 square foot left. And the other reason why I didn't want to make the barn and the parking lot too big, because I don't want to eat up all my impervious. You know, if I want to go over 20%, I got to get a variance, and it costs a lot of money and a lot of headaches to do that. And I want to have room to build other things and also to build a bigger house one day. So I figure it's the perfect size barn. Not a 40 by 60, it's not a 30 by 40, it's right in the middle at 36 by 50. So basically, yeah, after the barn and the parking lot were built, I basically was at 11% impervious, and then of course I put in the big driveway, which I'll show next. But of course down here we see for increases in impervious between 1,001 and 5,000. Follow township, 148 appendix 1 and include details of a stormwater plan with your application, which I just showed earlier. I also had to do a permit to put in my own driveway. So here you can see I did the site plan for that. Pretty much everything's exactly the same, except now over here you can see we got a driveway and we have the connection to the street right here. So this I actually had to do a zoning permit and I had to do a highway occupancy permit. And a highway occupancy permit is basically a permit that allows you to do work on the street or connect to a publicly township-owned road. So you can see proposed about 150 foot long by 12 foot wide. And yeah, I also had to build my own stormwater management system for that. So here you can see I had to do a 110 foot long infiltration trench that was 4 foot wide, and I believe that one was 2 foot deep. And I'll show that plan next. But again, this driveway is huge, man. Putting in this own private driveway for my pole barn and then having an easement to reuse my neighbor's driveway for residential stuff is incredible. I basically subdivided my property. I subdivided my property into 2 lots, basically, but it's 1 lot. So that's very valuable, especially the area I am. I mean, this is huge to have something like this, especially to have this barn and this driveway in the area I'm in. Very, very good thing to have, and I'm really glad it all worked out. And again, of course, for the driveway, I also had to do another impervious surface permit. Everything's the same here, except basically I'm just adding on the addition of the driveway. So in the other impervious, I included the full parking lot. So this, I'm only doing 150 foot of the 175 foot driveway. So basically an increase of 1,800 square foot. So now with the barn, the parking lot, and the driveway, I have a total of 6,650 impervious coverage, and you can see I'm still at 15%, which is pretty sweet. That means I have 5% impervious left to build, to go bigger on my house, to put in a pool, to build whatever the heck else I want, to build a couple more sheds. And again, of course, since this is over 1,000 square foot, I'd do the stormwater, which I showed earlier. I also want to show the actual post layout of the building. So the building is going to be 50 foot long, it's going to be 36 foot wide, and the diagonal is 61 foot. It's going to have 14 foot ceilings, and it's going to have 2 regular 36-inch doors on the sides facing the house. And then the front, it's going to have 3 12 by 12 garage doors. So very big doors to get, anything I need in there. And then it's going to, of course, have the 14 foot ceilings. I chose to put the doors on the eave side for a shop, like a workshop where you're going to be working on cars and vehicles. It never makes sense to put the doors on the gable side. It always makes sense to put them on the eave side and then have dedicated bays. So these bays are long enough where I can actually have 2 projects per bay going on at the same time. So I can have up to 4 projects going on between these 2 bays, and then I could have this entire bay for parking my daily drivers or whatever I want to use over here, just normal garage stuff. I could put shelving all along the rear and workbenches. I can put shelving all along the side. I can put shelving between the bays. With automotives, it just, at least in my opinion, it makes so much more sense to put the garage doors in the front. Because I see a lot of people build these, and they build, a real skinny building, but they make it really long, and they put like 1 or 2 doors on the gable side. And then what ends up happening is you get all sorts of stuff, all sorts of projects here. They get stuck and you can't get them out, because then you got all the stuff here, all the vehicles, you got to move everything out, and then you got to shimmy everything around. In my opinion, it would just be a nightmare to have doors on the gable side and have a really skinny but long building. I want as square of a building as I could get with dedicated bays, and that's what I went for.
So that's all the permitting and planning I had to do before I could start construction. There was also a whole bunch of things that I had to do and clean up on the property before construction could even start. I had to clear 10,000 square foot of woods. I had to hand dig over 150, probably like 100, 125 foot of conduit for power to my pole for 3-phase electric. And also I dug conduit between the house and sewer and conduit for water. And there was also an illegal cable that was buried in my property going up to my neighbor without an easement. And I actually had to get the title company involved in this. They determined it was illegal, and it took months and months and months to finally get that cable removed before I could start construction. So I think I'm going to show a little bit of footage on the woods clearing. I don't think I'm going to do a dedicated video to that. And then next video you'll start seeing all the other prep, like the conduit, the pad build, and eventually the pole barn construction.
Been working on clearing out these woods. This was all completely wooded. All kinds of brush, bushes, crazy vines. So this goes back about 25 foot. And then I did about 150 foot all the way to the road. I still got to clean up some over here, but man, this is a lot of work cutting all this down. The fire pit over there was burning it all. About a week into this. I got 40 hours into this, and yeah, still got to go all the way up there, like another 100 foot. But here's the property line. I found the pin over there. Then I had a survey done when I bought the property, and I have a pin over there. So there's actually a pin way over there, and you can kind of see this. You might be able to see this pink line here. So I basically cleared right up to it. That's the neighbors. I ain't touching that. But yeah, it looks like a war zone. I've been using this quad that I trash picked. Guy gave it to me for free so I could have it. Need a spark plug battery and some gas fired right up. I've been using that to yank stuff out. I'm clearing about, in total, from the street all the way to the end of my property, probably about 8,000 square foot I'm gonna be freeing up. I still gotta clean up a lot of this over here, but man, we're getting there. A big tornado came through here last year, before, a couple months before I bought the property, and it ruined all this. It's getting there. Got a lot of land to free up. So here's the property line. There's a big metal pin under there. So I put a stake here and ran the line all the way down. You can see pretty much this tree over is all mine. So still got to clear all this out. Fortunately, a lot of this is just this, it's this blackberry. It's these berry bushes. It's not poison ivy or anything. It looks like it, but it's not. It's called bramble. A lot of it's bramble and down tree branches. And a lot of dry stuff that's gonna burn real easy. So this was the brunt of the work getting this done. Getting a lot of these woods cleaned out. Got this little quad I've been pulling stuff out with and moving it over to the fire. Got the saw, but I cut up all this stuff. And you can see there's a stake there, right there. So that's my end of my property. So I cut up all this stuff. I gotta pull these logs out, clean up some more brush, but I mean, I've almost done 300 foot, about 25 feet wide. I mean, you can see down there, it's a lot cleaner. I started down here, been working all the way up here. Still a lot of brush I gotta get rid of. I have this Ryobi brush cutter attachment that I got, and I put a saw blade on it, and it just rips through everything. I wanna cut down these trees. All these trees need to go. And then over here is looking real nice. Bunch of brush piles, been raking up. Get those all burned. And again, walking all the way down here. I gotta pick all these rocks out and spread this topsoil out. Lots of wood over here that I gotta split and burn. And then all the way down here, I was hitting all this with the brush cutter and I ripped all this down with that brush cutter. That thing's great. There's a lot of this bramble, blackberry, and all these horrible thorn bushes that are just a pain. So I got most of this cleaned out, and all 3 of these trees are mine. I want to clean this one up. So let's get close to that power line. And there's the other property. So it goes about 300 foot from the road all the way down there. And you can see I'm getting stuff cleaned up. Get the fire going over there. Got the baby deer hanging out. Baby deer hanging out over there. They're always hanging out with me. And yeah, we're getting there. Trying to get all this crap out of here, get it all burned, and get these woods cleared out. Because it's about 10,000 square foot I'm freeing up. Making good progress on cleaning up the woods. Pretty much stopped here, chopping up all this wood still. So I got a lot to split. Had some massive trees that I was chopping up, but these are probably 2 foot diameter. Huge trees. Getting this really cleaned up. Some split wood here. Got a whole bunch of split wood over there. Just really happy with how this is progressing. Freeing up so much land. I'll walk all the way down. Might as well. It's a nice day. Pretty much got all the woods complete. You can see I got all these stumps and logs and all that all split up and moved. I got a lot of the brush removed. So at this point I'm gonna have the professionals come out, and you can see I have a bunch of stumps with X's on them. I'm gonna have them grind them down and cut down this tree, that tree, and one tree down there, but that's all that's left. Some stump grinding, some stump removal. You know, I could probably do it myself, but I mean, I got a company that came out and quoted 900 bucks, so you really can't beat that for 300 foot of final cleanup. And there's about 25 stumps or so. I'm gonna take that big log, all these stumps and everything, gonna get ground down, so it's gonna be great. And then once that's done, I can start raking out the rest of the brush, burning all the rest of the brush. And then next spring, they said they'll come back out with a special attachment for their skid steer, and they can grind anything up that's left. They'll grind it all up, and I can throw seed on it, and I should be able to get grass on here pretty easily. But man, this is gonna free up so much space. It already did. And I think I'm gonna get that tree and that tree yanked too, because they were on my property but they fell, and I'm still gonna get them yanked anyway, because in this township, if a tree falls on your property that's someone else's, it's your responsibility. But I'm gonna yank those out because they were still originally mine, so I still have a right to them. So yeah, really happy with how all this came out, and just about ready to move on. I finally finished clearing the woods. Property stakes right there, and then all the way down to the street. I had my tree guys come out and finish the job for me. There were about 30 stumps that needed to be ground, and a couple trees that I wasn't comfortable cutting down because they had a weird lean to them, and didn't want them falling in the neighbor's yard and hurting their fence or their dogs or pets. So everything's cleared out. I've been raking and burning the rest of the wood chips and whatever's on the ground. So you can see I got this entire area raked. Also been working on these electrical markings. I actually had 811 Dig come out in September, and they said this was an electric cable. And this is before all the woods were cut down. The guy said he didn't want to go in the woods to see if there were any cables back there. Well, what ended up is Comcast came through and buried an illegal cable, deactivated this one. Then I had them come out again, and they said, wait, there's nothing here. The electric's over there. So first time they came out, they actually mistook the old illegal cable, old illegal Comcast cable, for the electric, and it was screwing everything up because I wouldn't have been able to build my barn. But yeah, getting this removed because it's an illegal cable with no easement, and this is deactivated, so no problems if we hit that. But man, did this free up some space. I probably cleared up like about 8,000 square foot. So all this is all raked and burned. So I should be able to, once I start building the pad for the pole barn, have my guy hit this with the bulldozer, flatten it all, and get some grass on it. But I'm trying to figure out if this was the old Comcast cable. Can't find anything. I mean, I went down like two and a half foot. They say the electric's way over here, and this is a deactivated cable. They said there's nothing here, and I don't know. So anyway, both these Comcast cables are illegal, so if they get hit, not my problem. A lot of more crap I need to burn. But yeah, I'm really happy with how this came out. It was months and months of work. Here's the original legal Comcast cable that they just left. So I've been digging these holes trying to figure out where it goes. But it goes somewhere down here and up, and then connects over there. So this is all deactivated. This one's gonna get moved. There's also an old telephone pole there I had removed. Goes all the way down. Finally have Comcast burying a new cable from a neighbor on his property. And then they're gonna be getting that crap off mine so I can build my pole barn. Oh, getting all my utility lines cleaned up. There's an old illegal Comcast cable that was way down there sagging real low, so I had that removed because my neighbor's Comcast was buried on his property, so they ran a new cable all the way up there, down that pole, all the way up his driveway, and then all the way up and over to his house. So I was able to get the electric in my Verizon brought way up on this side and on this side. So now I have a ton of room for dump trucks to get through here, and no issues with them hitting these wires. They're way up there now. And then also been digging out the old illegal Comcast cable because I got to put my own utilities for my pole barn over here. And I'm probably going to reuse this trench. I just got to go down another foot or so, and I can run my 3-inch or 4-inch conduit for my 4-wire 3-phase that I want to install. Hopefully what they can do is put a transformer at the top of that pole, run the 3-phase wires and the neutral from up there, and then I can go down here and bury the 3-phase underground. But it's gonna be about 2 hours, 30 minutes to dig this whole cable out. It's about 140 foot. So I got all that out. I can start backfilling this later, and I might be able to reuse some of this trench here. We'll see. It might be close to my neighbor's electric. He has an easement, so it might be a little close. It crosses over at some point. You can see some red there. So I got to get 811 Dig back out here because someone came and took down all my flags and everything without my permission. So I don't know where anything is anymore. But yeah, basically I can run the conduit 45 over and come up right here somewhere right next to the building, and then it'll go into the meter and go into it. So I can get all that conduit put in because I need to fill about 4 foot here. So this is going to be covered in stone, and I'll never be able to get conduit in if I don't do it before. And then yeah, sawzalled it out right at the property line. Backfill this and be done with that.